imagine that leadership is not always what you think it is. We often imagine leaders as these flawless, polished icons who have all the answers. But here's the real deal. Leadership is messy, it can be raw, and is profoundly human. And that's exactly what we're diving into on Leadership Plus with Dr. G. I'm not interested in bringing you the buzzwords and the theory, but I want to get down to the core and heart of what it takes to lead. So whether you're navigating challenges, building your team, or refining your vision, this is your space to grow and thrive as a leader. Now let's jump in. So hello, everyone. Welcome to this episode of Leadership Plus with Dr. G. This is a podcast where we keep it real about what it takes to lead, grow, and inspire others to be their absolute best. And as always, I am just so delighted to be your host. I'm Dr. Shanette Grand. Welcome. And of course, I would be remiss if I did not say to you, if you have not watched all the previous episodes, and today's going to be especially important for you to watch one of the previous episodes. It's going to be episode 1. It was my very first episode on leadership and the power of influence in leadership. We talked about the difference between leaders who have influence and don't. We talked about the fact that titles don't make leaders. We talk about the fact that you have individuals in your organization that don't have title, they don't have the authority, but they are born leaders. And in that episode, I talked about a very special woman who I referred to her as being a pain in my and you can fill in the blanks, right? And I knew when I did that episode that one of the person I wanted to be my very first guest on my podcast was that very special lady, right? You only call people you love pain in the you know that, right? So you know she must be super special. I talked about the fact that while she did not have a leadership role, a formal leadership role in the school where I was at the time, this woman had tremendous influence and impact. One influence and impact that I loved, admired, and even when she was being a pain in my I saw her for who she was. I saw the value she brought to the work, to the organization, and I knew she had to be an ally. I knew she was one who could move people, even though she herself did not have any formal title. So with that said, I'm going to remind you, go back, watch all the other episodes. But before you watch this one, I want you to put pause. If you're hearing this right now, you have to go back, watch episode 1, leadership and the role of influence in leadership, and come back to this one because then it will make sense to you. All right. So I am just so excited. I'm so excited to have on here today Miss Lana Patterson. Welcome, Miss B.
Thank you.
I'm so excited to have you. You don't even know how excited I am about this episode. This is like my dream come true because you are a true example of somebody who exemplifies leadership regardless of title, authority, position, and a lot of people could learn a lot of things from you. So before we get started, I have some questions for you, of course, because now you know you are on the hot table today, right? You're in the hot chair, in the hot seat.
Okay.
I want you to just very briefly introduce yourself, and then we'll get going.
Well, good morning, everyone. My name is Lana Patterson. I'm a little tense right now because I've never had this exposure before. What is podcast and all this excitement that Dr. Grant is about to get me in? But I promise that I'll do the best I can.
Everything you do is best, Miss P. That's just what I know about you, and that's what makes you so special because I know no matter what you do your best. So tell us a little bit about your background. What is it that you've been doing all these years leading up to now?
Well, I've been a teacher for the past 42 years.
Mm-hmm.
Something that I really enjoy doing, in so much that I still find myself teaching, even though I'm not in the classroom. I spent 18 years, I came to the United States with 18 years of experience under my belt. When I first came here, I was so discouraged by other people saying that being a teacher here in the United States is very difficult. So what I did was I started at Kaiser College, starting to study to become a paralegal. But then I realized that I wasn't really enjoying it as much as I did in the classroom. So soon after, I got involved with people who were in the teaching profession at my church. And once they explained to me how to get into the system, then I decided that's where I belong. And so I decided to continue my teaching career here. So I went back to FAU, did what I had to do, and my first job in the public school, whereas before entering the public school, I was really working in like daycare centers. And then I started feeling very worthless because I know I had more to offer. And so after meeting the requirements here in Florida, my first public school, I spent a stint at Nova, but
Mhm.
that's not where I wanted to be. And so I found myself at Lauderdale Lakes Middle School. When I got there, I could understand why people were talking about teaching is difficult here, because then I started learning about inner city schools and all of that. But I think that's where I belonged. I left Lauderdale Lakes Middle School not because I didn't want to be there to help those children, but because of the time that the school started and I had a young child to take care of. So it was very difficult. And even though the principal worked with me, I don't like when people do those kind of favors for me. I want to follow what everybody else is doing. And eventually I found myself at William Dandy Middle School, where I worked for a little over 20 years. I am now retired. I'm in my third year of retirement. And even though I miss the classroom, it's better to be traveling. It's better to get up when I feel like. It's better to be able to help students without being committed. And when I say committed, I'm the kind of person, if I start with you, I can't stop,
Mhm.
but I can help you whenever I'm available. So that's what I enjoy doing now. I find myself mentoring teachers, and I honestly believe that I should be at the elementary level where I can mentor teachers because that's where the foundation needs to be laid so that when the children come to middle school, they already have that solid foundation on which you can build. Because just like building a house, if it doesn't have a solid foundation, it's not going to last for a long time. So
Mhm.
I found out that when in middle school, the children lack, not that they cannot do math, but they lack the basic skills that are needed. And that is what you need to start working on. Forget about curriculum. Once you lay that foundation, you can move those kids. But if you're going to follow curriculum and not fix the problems, you are going to find that the children are not going to be successful.
Oh my goodness, Miss B, I was going to ask you because you mentioned that you've been teaching for 42 years initially, but you came back around to it because you're actually retired. Even though you have all those math formulas in your screen behind you, A plus B square 5 over F minus 32. You live and you breathe math, and you've had such an amazing career just working in schools, working with kids. And as you mentioned, even though you are retired, which I'm kind of jealous, like you said, you do it when you want to. I'm a little jealous, Miss P. I want to be like you when I grow up. But I want you to share with us real briefly. You shared a really great, comprehensive, overview of your career, and your background. And I can just sense the passion. What was it that you loved most about your time in
Wow.
education?
When you talk about education, then you just
Oh,
turned me on.
I'm
So,
sure.
I could go on and on.
Mm-hmm.
But what I love most about, but first I want to say why and how I found myself into education.
Mm-hmm.
I had a teacher by the name of Mrs. Ivy Townsend. And even though my mother was a teacher, she was not the one who influenced me to become a teacher. Mrs. Ivy Townsend was my teacher who really, really inspired me to become a teacher. My journey started out in grade three. So I was in her grade three class, and then she was moved to grade six. So, not grade six, yes, grade six. So when she moved to grade six, she took three of us with her. So as a result, I did not go to grade 4. I didn't go to grade 5. I jumped all the way to grade 6.
Six. Wow.
So I don't think I was the smartest kid in town, but she recognized something in me that I didn't know about myself at the time.
Mhm.
But this lady could teach. Oh my God. She brought so much life to mathematics. And I was like, oh my God, I want to be like her when I grow up. And I remember one day, one of the times, she injured herself and we used to go to her house and she was in her bed and we were around the bed and she was still teaching like she was in the classroom. But I always admired her. And I every day I said, I want to be a teacher like this woman. So that's how I entered the teaching business.
That's amazing. I know from working with you that you definitely, based on your description of Miss Ivy, have a lot of Miss Ivy traits, right?
Yes,
Because I've seen it, I've witnessed it, I've seen you do it with kids. And something you said, Miss P, that is super important is that Miss Ivy recognized something in you that you didn't even at the time see in yourself. You were just a
right,
regular old third grade, as we say in Jamaica, grade 3 student, doing your thing. You didn't think about that. And as leaders, one of the things that's important for us, and I talked about in a previous podcast as well, is this idea that it's important for us be open to speaking life into other people because sometimes we are the catalyst to moving them in a direction that they didn't even think about
right,
because we recognize something in them that they don't even know. That happened with me. I shared that story with my audience before, how when I became an assistant principal, I had no idea what leadership in schools in America was all about. And it was an assistant principal who said to me, "You're going to be a fine assistant principal one day." He was my supervisor at the time. I never even thought about it. And all of a sudden, here I was with this gentleman speaking life into me. So I can definitely affirm the power of people speaking positively into other people's lives. So thank you for sharing that.
so when you talk about now, you're talking about elementary school. So, in elementary school, you teach everything, right?
Hmm.
But even though she taught me everything, social studies, language arts, religious education,
Hmm.
what really stood out to me was her style of teaching math. And
Hmm.
so for the past umpteen years, I have been teaching math.
That's
It's
awesome.
all
I love it.
because of how I was taught mathematics.
I love
So
it. I love it.
mathematics is real. It's real.
It's
So
real.
when you're teaching it, you have to make sure that because most people find it to be challenging,
Hmm.
most people find it to be boring, then you have to bring life. You have to
Do
bring
it.
mathematics to life so that
Hmm.
people can understand it.
Right.
You know? Because, for example, just the other day, I was working with this child because he's working on equations at the school he attends. And he was having such a difficult time with like and unlike terms. And I'm like, you do this every day. Algebra is just using the letters of the alphabet to represent whatever you want it to represent.
Hmm.
So let's think about it. If you look and you see A plus B, and they're asking you to add. There are only four things you can do in math. You can only add, subtract, multiply, or divide. So the plus sign means you're going to put stuff together, right? To find the total. Well, if you went to the grocery store and you bought some apples that you put in your cart and you bought some bananas, when you go to the cashier, what are you going to pay for? You're going to pay for apples,
Yes.
plus you're going to pay for bananas. The apples cannot change the bananas into apples and the bananas cannot change the apples into bananas. Therefore, you still have apples and bananas. And so we call them unlike terms. So your answer has to be apples and bananas. But in math, we don't like to write. We use symbols. And therefore, my answer has to be A for apples plus B for bananas.
Hmm.
But let us take another look at something else. Sometimes we have what we call like terms. So this time you could have apple plus apple, A plus A. Now, because they're like terms, when you go to the cashier, what are you going to do? You're going to pay for two apples. Therefore, your answer is 2A.
That's that's that's
That's what
you
math is
bringing
about.
that Miss Patterson, Miss P. You've been you've been leading in the classroom and inspiring for decades, right?
That's what
And
it is.
it's that kind of example that we're talking about today because it's the inspiration, right? It's helping people relate to what
Yes.
you're trying to teach them. Now, you mentioned that story. You talked about Miss Ivy who inspired you. I know you to be a very inspirational person, right? To many of the colleagues, many of the people you worked with on the campus where I had the privilege of working with you. So I want you to tell me, how did it feel for you personally to be in a position where, while we talked about it, you heard me do my prelude that, this is all about somebody who didn't have any formal title, right? You weren't an assistant principal, you weren't an administrator, you weren't, any of those formal leadership titles, but you had such great respect from the staff and you were able to inspire them, you were able to lead them, which Miss P sometimes in the direction I didn't even want you to go to, right? And because this is what we're talking about today. To lead them even in the direction that sometimes like, can Miss Patterson just walk in the right direction that I'm trying to move her to? She not interested. She was not interested. Tell me what it was for you to be in that position where you could lead and inspire others, even though you weren't officially in charge.
Well, the only way you can lead a person is first, you have to model. You have to set the example. How am
Mm-hmm.
I going to come talking to you when I'm saying one thing through one side of my mouth and I'm saying something through the other side? I have to model.
Mm-hmm.
So every day you should be consistent in what I'm talking to you about. So if you can't see it in me, you're not going to listen to me. So it starts with me.
Self-leadership.
Starts with me.
Self, correct.
Self. You
Mm-hmm.
have to look into yourself. And if there is something that you want to talk to somebody about, make sure that when they look at you, they see all that you are talking about them. They see it in you. They see what you are doing.
Mm-hmm.
So now, you get that respect from them. And so they are going to want to be like you, just like how I wanted to be like Mrs. Thousand, my
Mm-hmm.
teacher.
Mm-hmm. That's amazing. That it starts right there, right? We talk
Starts with
about
me.
looking in the mirror
even in the
first.
classroom
It's
even in the
important.
classroom you
Mm-hmm.
have to model. Sometimes teachers don't realize, for example, how are you going to be chewing gum in the classroom? Tell the children they can't chew in the classroom, but you're constantly chewing.
Mm-hmm.
How are you going to tell the students? Now it's a little different because Broward Schools has shut down the use of phones by the students throughout the
A
school
number of
day.
counties are
But
starting to
prior
do
to
that.
that, how
Mm-hmm.
is it you're on your phone, but you're telling the children they cannot be on their phone? When I call you, Miss Grant, I'm not going to stop my lesson to talk to you.
Mm-hmm.
It starts with me, right? So
Mm-hmm.
when I call you to my desk, and I always have a chair by my desk, so I call you to my desk and I'm like, have you ever seen me using my phone in the classroom? No.
Mm-hmm.
Why do you think I do that?
Mm-hmm.
Because I'm here for you. So I give you 100% of my time. So the same way I'm giving you 100% of my time, I need that from you. It's the little things that you do. And then it will be instilled. You instill that in the child. So you don't have to waste time on every little thing because they know what you expect from them. Well,
Mm-hmm.
it's the same thing with my colleagues, right? I have
Mm-hmm.
to model.
Mm-hmm.
When the bell rings, where should I be? I shouldn't be in the cafeteria. I shouldn't be in teacher planning. I shouldn't be there doing my own thing.
You should be by
I
your door.
I'm supposed to be by my door.
Right.
So if I am modeling that and you can see me all the time by my door, when I approach you and say, why is it your students are running around? You know you're supposed to be at the door. And this is why you guys get into problems with administration. Then
Mm-hmm.
they're going to do it because you model.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So it's setting the examples, right? So
Yes.
as a leader, which you were clearly in many ways in the classroom, outside of the classroom with your colleagues, you had the influence, you were able to inspire, but you modeled, like you said,
You
you
model.
led by example. And that
Yes.
is such an important thing for leaders to know that.
Yes, because the thing about it is, with me working with my colleague, what I'm doing is keeping administration away, not only from me, but from you.
Mm-hmm.
Because if you're doing what you're supposed to do and they know that you're always doing what you're supposed to do, they're not going to bother you.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So, Miss B, let's talk about this administration since you brought it up, right? So, I know you've been in education for a long time. You've seen a lot. You've worked with many different. And again, one of the reasons why I love you so much is because you will always give individuals, we have a saying, a run for their money because it's not going to be easy, right? You have to convince people have to convince you that it's the right thing to do. Tell me,
Exactly.
how did you perceive, and again, because you've been in education so long, it's hard over the years, just give me real short, how did you perceive the leadership above you in some situations as it relates to some of what you're talking about, the modeling, the leading by example, the having the ability to pull people together and show them what really needs to happen. Talk to me about how you perceive the leadership above you while you were in your space.
Well, for me, I have worked with more than one administrator since I've been here. And so everybody comes in with their own vision.
Mm-hmm.
And so one of the things that I learned is when different administrators come in, you first have to observe.
Mm-hmm.
You need to observe. You need to try to figure out what is their plan and how are you going to fit in with their expectation.
Mm-hmm.
You need to see if they're just talking or if they're modeling. So don't come into your meeting and come and tell me, do this, do that, but I don't see you doing anything. So again, it starts with administration.
Mm-hmm.
And then the next thing you want to do is you want to go in and you want to kind of pick their brain because, you want to pick their brain and see what they're up to. Don't just try to put them in a box or try to compare them with others who were before
Mm-hmm.
because everybody's style is different. And then because I was in a school where administration changed, and then when it comes on to like testing and we know the expectation of the school, you want to see where they stand.
Mm-hmm.
But it starts with observation.
Mm-hmm.
Then the next step is having a talk, open conversation.
Mm-hmm.
You're going to go in a very respectful way. And, you want to say, this is what I observe. And I don't know if I really understand what it is that you're expecting from me as a teacher, because I'm going to take it personal. I'm not yet even going to talk about staff.
Mm-hmm.
I am taking it personal because I want to know what you expect from me.
Mm-hmm.
But it starts from observation
Right.
for
Now, Ms.
me.
P, you mentioned, the fact that observation, trying to figure out what they're about, and kudos to you because, and I know you, I've come to know you and I know where your heart is and I know that you have really high expectations and your values are up there because if they don't align with what your babies need to learn, that it's a problem for you because at the end of the day, you're going to keep they say keep the major, and in education, the major is the children, right? What's good for kids is what we do.
Yes.
You mentioned this idea of going in and having conversations with your administrators. I mean, like you
Yes.
said, you've worked with many. And I'd be very happy to hear that every single one of them was open to conversation. That's what I really would love to hear you say. But can you share with me a little bit about, the different dynamics? Were all your administrators open to having conversations?
Well, they didn't have a choice with me.
Well, I love it.
No.
I love it. I love
It
it.
wasn't up to choice. I am here because I want to know what it is
Mhm.
that you expect. It has nothing to do with anybody else.
Mm-hmm.
I need to know. So it's not like I gave a choice
Mm-hmm.
because if you didn't answer me, I'm coming back.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And it's about my students.
I love that answer, persistence. And it's sometimes change does not always happen from the top up, right? A lot of times change happen because individuals that are a part of the team, a part of the staff from the bottom up is coming with the ideas, is coming with the initiatives, is coming with, the messaging. And that's exactly what you just said. And, I've talked about the importance of staff, it's not just about the leader sometimes. So staff to have the grit and have the boldness sometimes to do it and do it respectfully. Because that's what it really comes down to. If you can go in
Right.
and have a respectful conversation, whether they listen or do is another whole thing. But it's important that even when you are not necessarily in a position of authority, that you still have that boldness. It goes back to self-leadership once again, right? How do you govern yourself? How do you contribute as a member of the team? There's so much that people can learn, individuals can learn from that. But I also want to make sure that our listeners and our audience understand it's important. Just like you said, I wish everybody had a Lana Patterson to deal with, right? Because you hear what you said? I keep coming. Not everybody keeps coming. Not everybody will go and come back and go and come back. Some people, they get really dejected. They don't have the same grit, the same personalities. People are different. I always say what makes the world beautiful is that we're all different, right? So it's not a right or wrong. It's just that some people will retreat. And they're retreating sometimes with some amazing thoughts, some amazing insights, some amazing ideas, because as leaders, we don't create a space, a safe space where people can come in and have those kinds of conversations.
No, but you can't get turned off because it depends on what are your objectives.
Mm-hmm.
Because when I come to you as an administrator, I am not coming with a complaint. I'm
Mm-hmm.
coming with a concern, which
Mm-hmm.
is different from complaining,
Right.
and I'm coming with a solution.
Solution. I love it. I love it.
So that is different.
Right. Right. No, and listen, this is why you're special, Miss P. This is why you're special. But again, word to the people who are out there listening, take the advice, right? Go with the concern, go with a solution to the problem. Be there to work collaboratively. And most importantly, to the leaders, be open to hearing, be open to listening, be open to collaborating with your team and your team members. Thank you,
Yes.
Ms. P, for sharing that. So, Ms. P, when you and I work together, right? As you mentioned, we don't have to go into the details of the staff. We didn't have to go into the details of the work that needed to be done. But what I will share with the audience, just so that they have context, right? You and I worked in a school that had a lot of challenges. Would you
Yeah.
agree with that?
Mm-hmm.
Had a
Yes.
lot of challenges. And I come with my crazy self, right? Trying to do some stuff, and you said it. You came observing. You came asking questions. You did. You were in my office more than my secretary was in my office, Miss Patterson. Always trying to ask some questions, right? And yes, I heard you, I listened, but sometimes there are things that I needed to work on that you didn't necessarily agree with, right? And one particular aspect of that was one of the things that we could always rely on you for, because the same way you had influence with your colleagues, and they loved you, they respected you, they appreciated you. And one of the reasons they appreciated you so much is because you went to bat for them. You would take on the challenges. We just talked about it. Not everybody's bold enough to go, address the administration or go speak or keep speaking about certain things. And you became their voice, right? By virtue of being their voice, you were defending and defending and defending and trying to take up for them and all of these things. Now, because unfortunately or fortunately, as the quote unquote, and I'm gonna say quote unquote leader, Miss B, because like I said, it's not about title, but yes, I was kind of sitting in the principal position. So technically I was the principal. Even on some days, I think you were the principal, right? These people, there are things that just needed to be done because not everybody in that building was operating like a Miss Patterson. You did not know that because you were protected by the four walls and doors of your classroom and your beautiful students. I don't use this word to be derogatory. I could give you the most difficult, struggling, let me just put it this way, the worst child on campus, right? And we don't want to call children worse, but their behaviors, right? They were not prone to learning. They didn't want to learn. Some of them wanted to learn on the flip side, but they struggled because you mentioned it earlier. They never had the foundations, right? So then they come to you and now you got to catch up on 4 years of elementary school. Miss Patterson, I couldn't convince you on certain things that I just needed to do some things because not everybody was fighting the good fight. I'm trying to, you see how diplomatic I'm trying to be here? Not everybody was fighting the good fight, right? I challenged you to see the bigger picture and not just be fighting me on the things, but really just to see through the lens of someone who had all the information. You didn't have all the information. You had the information of your classroom. I had the information of you of the school, right? When I challenge you to see the bigger picture, because while you thought all of your peers were doing what you did, they weren't. Tell me, how did that shift your perspective on leadership and your perspective on the importance of collaborating with your leader?
Well, to be very honest, I can still recall getting that opportunity to observe some of these classrooms, and I was at a loss for words.
Let me pause for a second, Miss P, before you finish that statement, right? So that the viewers understand the context of what you're about to explain. So, viewers, here's the deal. So, because I couldn't convince her that not everybody was as amazing and awesome. I'm looking right at the camera now. I'm not looking at you on the screen, right? Was as awesome as she was. I orchestrated, well, in education, we call them instructional rounds. And, administrators do these things all the time. We go visit classrooms, we take notes for feedback, we do all kinds of things. But on that campus, I don't think we had ever done instructional rounds where teachers got to go into each other's classrooms. And the reason I wanted to do that is because I wanted people like a Miss Patterson to get into some of her colleagues' classroom, the same colleagues she would come to my office 10 times a day to go to bat for, right? I wanted her to see firsthand what was going on. So this is what she's referring to when she said when she had the opportunity to go into the classrooms. So go ahead, Miss P. I'll let you finish.
Yes, I was at a loss for words. I really was. From the observation, it taught me very valuable lessons because firsthand, I realized that what I expected from my colleagues
Mhm.
was what I was going to see, but sad to say, it was not so. I was embarrassed because now I felt like here I am fighting for people and they are not doing what they're supposed to do. So I realized that, okay, I'm passionate about what I am doing. And now here is administration trying to reach this vision or this goal or their objectives. And here are some of my colleagues who are just behind their desk. I wouldn't say some of the things I observed, but it was sad. It was really sad. And so I took it upon myself to just start having one-on-one conversation with people. So I tried to meet them like during their planning time.
Mhm.
I met them before school. I
Mhm.
scheduled for them to come to my classroom after school. I scheduled for them to come into my classroom when they were planning so they could observe from beginning to end just how I ran my room. Not that I think I was the best of the best, but I am sure that they could pick up some positive that they could take back to their classroom. And honestly, it was very challenging for me to go back and admit to administration that they were right.
Yes.
But I had
Yes,
to.
Miss. Yes. I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding. This is not about the victory or the win, but you're right because I'm sure.
Well, you said the victory or the win, but one of the things I learned too, that it's not about me as an individual because I know I was doing all the right things,
Mhm.
but then I just didn't want to be an individual who's considered to be a winner,
Mhm.
but I wanted to be on a winning team.
Mhm.
And so
Yeah.
it was my responsibility, I thought, to take it upon myself to make sure that we were all on board because every time that we had faculty meeting and I heard administration talking and the things they were saying, now I could not really talk up the way I used to because I saw it for myself.
Mhm. I like to say sometimes the solution is right in front of you, and as leaders, we don't even know it, right? And this is a perfect example of really relying on your team and people on your team who you know can help you bring your vision together. And regardless of, disagreements or differences in approach, it really speaks to the value of just committing to win as a team, right?
as a
Committing to
team.
collaborate, committing to listening to everyone and hearing the perspectives and being open, both sides, administration as well as the team members, to be able to do so. So, Miss B, tell me
But
what did
then,
you?
before you go on, but
Mm-hmm,
then I also believe that some of the things that I observed, administration had that opportunity to go in and they were aware of different people who were not doing what they were supposed to be doing.
mm-hmm,
So I am suggesting that what administration could have done was say, okay, these are some of the things we observed. And
mm-hmm,
then I want your feedback on it rather than just giving people an opportunity to walk into classrooms. So I had to observe and compare myself,
mm-hmm,
or I had to put myself in the place of a parent. Is this the kind of teacher that I want to be teaching my child?
mm-hmm,
Where so I didn't have anything to compare. I think it's a very good thing that was implemented, and I think that all schools should have that in place. But there should be something in writing when I'm going in that I know what they are seeing versus what I am seeing,
mm-hmm.
and what suggestion. Then I should come back with suggestions
On
as to
how
how
to
this
address
could
it.
be fixed.
Okay, good point. Good point. Good point. Good point. Good point. Sometimes shock value is important, but good point. So tell me, Miss P, what did you learn about balancing your passions with organizational goals in all of this?
Well,
Well, you kind of touched on it a little bit because you learned some stuff, but what do you think ultimately you learned about?
well, I learned how to reflect on my contribution,
Mm-hmm.
supporting administration, that my passion had to be aligned with the broader purpose of what administration was working towards.
Mm-hmm.
I learned to channel my energy and my dedication into doing the best I can for the school on a whole, not just keeping it to myself. I also realized that my effort should not only fulfill organizational objectives, but also reinforce my personal sense of purpose.
Mm-hmm.
I
Mm.
I I learned so much.
Mm.
I
I
learned the
want you to say,
importance.
I want you
I
to
learned
say that last one again. Say that last one again. That
I
your
recognize that my effort
mm-hmm.
should not only fulfill organizational objectives, but also should reinforce my personal sense of purpose.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
100%. And I like to say when people are fulfilling their purpose, guess who's the benefactor? Guess who benefits from all of that? The organization. So, whereas, like you said, you're not doing it necessarily just to fulfill the organizational purpose, but when you are at your absolute best and committed to doing your best, I'm a believer, Miss B, when you're committed to do your best, you don't even have to worry about the organization because it's going to line up. The stars are going to align, and somehow they're going to find a way to come together because when people are at their best, the organization thrives. The organization does well. It's an individual, then it's the team, and then it's the organization. Because while you were working with a number of people, I'm sure your initial focus was your math team, right? Your math people, right? Now the math people see, now the science people see the math people blowing it out the water, then everybody wants to do the same. And it's not because it's only math people you worked with, but you're right. You make sure people are the best they can be and are open and are free to really being the best they can be and supporting that. That is going to trickle into the team effect. And when the team starts doing well, the organization is going to do well as
The
well.
organization will do well.
Mm-hmm.
But, you just said that, but sometimes administration, rather than just coming into an open meeting
Mm-hmm.
and just talking about one or two things that they observe that need to be corrected, instead of coming into a meeting where it doesn't concern everyone, even though in the end everybody will benefit if all is on board, when administration come into a meeting and you're talking like that, it frustrates those people who are
We're
doing
doing
what
the
they're
right
supposed
thing.
to do. So what
Mm-hmm.
administration I'm suggesting should be doing is talking to people one-on-one.
Mm-hmm.
One-on-one.
Mm-hmm.
This is what we observe as administration. Now, not everybody, probably to the administrator who is over that individual, right? You talk to the person, you share what is it that you observe, you share with the person or make
Mm-hmm.
suggestions as to when I come back into your room, this is what I want to see improvement, because the person can't improve in everything at one time, you know.
Right.
But you're going to pick out what is most important. And you're going to, because there are too many teachers leaving the classroom because of administration.
Right.
Too many.
So, Miss P, that's such a great point, right? And that's not just teachers. There are people who are fleeing companies, who are fleeing any organization
We're
because,
not talking about any other organization. We're
but
talking
we
about
are because this is
teaching.
about leadership, right? So
Yeah.
we are. You see how she
Yeah.
fighting me? This is Miss P. This is what we deal with all day long. I love it.
Teaching,
I
teaching.
love
There are
it.
too many
There are too
teachers
many
leaving. So
teachers.
let's stick to the classroom, because
Hmm.
every organization, every doctors, everybody, they come to the teachers. So we have to do something about keeping teachers in the classroom. So what
Hmm.
is it that administration at their level can
Can
do
do.
to help these people? You know, these people are coming out. The fact that they start, it means that they have a little love for teaching.
Hmm.
So
Hmm.
we can't push them out because they are not performing at, at their best. They don't know. Some of them are first year teachers. So
Hmm.
somebody has to take the responsibility to help them along.
Right. Agreed.
So,
Agreed. Agreed.
there are too many.
Top two reasons are usually discipline, and it's usually leadership is what it is in terms of teachers fleeing classrooms. And both things can be influenced by leadership, right? Because when leaders support teachers in their roles, teachers learn how to better be equipped to handle the discipline pieces. And once that is down packed, you can handle a curriculum as well. Miss
Well, I know
Patterson.
that administration can do better, because when I committed myself to periodically
Hmm.
reassess my efforts and pivoting where I needed to with
Hmm.
my colleagues, I saw improvement. So I'm saying,
That's why you are the leader without the title, but with the influence and with
but
the
but if I can do
impact
it as an individual, when I had to do it during my planning time before school, after school, administration was more flexible
to be able to do that.
to be able to do that,
Hmm.
rather
Hmm.
than coming into a meeting and making it seem like it was everybody.
So I will say, Miss P, and I won't go down that rabbit hole because I know I can go down rabbit holes with you, and this is not the time or place. I will say to you, no matter what administration has been at, any school you've been at, any school you've been at, one-on-ones happen. Those conversations happen, but it goes back to again what you're aware of. Those are not things that administrators are going to come out and speak to staff about because that's a part of the integrity of how you deal with people, how you work with people, right? So I just want you to know that I'm not gonna go down that rabbit hole with you, but I know your passion, so that's why I'm not even gonna go there with you. I know exactly what you're saying, and when you hold on to your piece, you hold on to your piece. Miss Patterson, I love you. I love you. I think you are an amazing teacher. I think you're an amazing human being. I think so many kids who have come through your hand have been so blessed, right? But more importantly, all of the individuals that you have impacted, right, as peers, as colleagues, administrators who you have pushed to step up their game because I didn't know I was gonna meet a Miss Patterson. I probably came in thinking it's gonna be a cakewalk and I'm not gonna, no, administrators like myself whom you pushed to really step up their game. We appreciate you. We appreciate you. And no matter whether it's school or no matter what organization you're in, I encourage leaders out there to embrace the Miss Pattersons of the world, right? To embrace the input, to embrace the passion, to embrace the love for the work and for the clients that you serve. And in our cases, because we're talking about education, it's our kids, it's our babies, it's our students, right? And I saw you do tremendous, tremendous work as a leader without a title, right? as a leader who didn't have formal authority. And this is what this conversation really is all about, is for leaders to recognize that there are Miss Pattersons all over your buildings that can help you get the work done. It's not important how we get there. It's just important that we get there. It's not important, right? Who does it at the end of the day? It's important that the kids that we're serving, the clients we're dealing with, the work we're getting done is getting done. And that's why I'm just always in awe of you. And
Well,
while
when
you
you
are
look at
no
it,
longer in the classroom and you're still teaching and you're still doing all these
that's
things,
the title.
I don't know
That's
where
the
you find
title.
time. I don't know where you find time, Miss P. I don't know where you find or the energy. You're retired, so you have the time, but I don't know where you find the energy.
Because the title is teacher. And what does a teacher do?
Teach.
Teacher teach. That's your responsibility.
Teachers,
You
teachers.
teach.
Well, we all should have a little
Yes.
bit of teacher in all of us.
Yes.
Don't you think?
Yes.
No matter what we do, we should have
So
a teacher.
the teacher in me is to work with my students that have been entrusted in my care. And the teacher and the administrators are to bring out the true teacher of the staff
Of the
they
staff.
supervise.
In other words, making your people the best that they can be so they can be the best
Exactly.
for those that we serve.
Yeah.
There's no better
And
way to
connect them. And what I did was to team them up.
Mm-hmm.
So as an administrator, you find one of your weak teachers, and if you think you're not reaching that person, you team them up with somebody else.
I did that with you. I gave you some, right? And what I love most is that you embraced the challenge. You embraced it, you loved it, and you were willing because your passion is real. And I think many of us in the formal leadership title can learn a lot from your passion, can learn a lot from your commitment, can learn a lot from all of what you're doing. Because we're not talking about leadership with a title, Ms. Patterson, you're a true leader. You're a true pioneer as it relates to what you do. You embrace self-leadership like no other, and your resilience is just unmatched, right? And I just want to say, I appreciate you. I want you to know, if I never ever told you, I appreciate you. You are a pain in my, oh, when I tell you a pain, but I loved every minute of it. You made
My
me a
students
better
thought so
leader.
too, right?
You made me exactly.
Yeah, my
Exactly.
students thought I was a pain, but the funny thing about it
They
is
love you.
they didn't want to be out of my room.
They loved you. I know this. I know this, right? And as leaders, that's who we should be for the people that we lead, right?
Yes.
So, Miss Patterson, thank you for taking the time out of your busy retired schedule, which you're always busy because I don't want to keep up with you. I don't even want to go into all of what you're getting into these days. To come and have this conversation with me. I'm hoping not only leaders, but individuals working in organizations will be inspired today. Inspired whether you're in a classroom, which I know that's your focus, whether you're in a classroom, in another building, in a church, whatever company you're working with. I hope individuals will hear you, hear your passion, and really recognize that when you really live up to your true purpose, you can just do amazing things and you can create tremendous impact and influence. And then for leaders, be open to the Miss Pattersons of the world. They make you better. They grow you. They challenge you. They help you be the best leader that you could ever be, right? It's not a challenge unless you have a challenger. There's no growth unless you're being stretched. So with that said, I just want to say thank you again for joining me. Thank you, Ms. Patterson. If you're listening, you're hearing this podcast again, please go back and watch, subscribe, share with others who you know can benefit from these insights. I know you know somebody who can really benefit from what was shared here today, and continue to be amazing, continue to lead, continue to be the advocate for making sure that your people are at their very best, because when they're at their best, the organization also benefits. With
Well,
that said,
I know that you referred to me as what? Um,
I love you, Miss P. That's all I refer to you as, a Miss P. Oh, it's so
so
funny that your name starts with a P, Miss P, that I refer to you as my P. But your name starts with a P. See, was meant to be.
Yes.
Miss Patterson, I love you. I'm very proud of. I'm so proud. You should be proud of me because but I'm so proud of you. I'm always proud of you. But I'm always very excited about all of what you're doing. You make me smile all the time, and even when I hear what you're getting into now, I'm just like, that's Miss Patterson. That's Miss Patterson.
All over the place,
All
right?
over the place. Retirement
All over the
hasn't slowed
place.
her down one bit. Miss P, thank you for your time. Thank you for your time.
It was
I
a pleasure.
appreciate you. I
My
love you.
pleasure.
It was nice seeing you. People probably think that I've been seeing you forever. I haven't seen you face
I
to
haven't
face
seen
the
you in a
first time
long,
in a long time.
a
This is
long
our first
time.
face to face in years,
It's
literally
been
years
a while.
in a while. So it is an absolute pleasure. But I also knew you needed to be my first because a lot of
Okay.
times when we do these things, Miss Patterson, we focus on, the leaders, right? So leaders. But I always say you're not leading unless somebody's following. And who better to
Exactly.
talk about a leader than the persons that are being led? Right. So we go, we talking to ourselves and we patting ourselves on the shoulder and tell ourselves how awesome we are. But really talk to the people who are being led and get
Yeah.
some insights because that's where we can truly grow and really learn as leaders about how to really excel and be the best that we can be. The same way we want our folks to be the best we can be, we want to be the best that we can be as well.
Yeah.
So, all right, let's wrap this up.
So,
Miss,
so my advice to leaders working with, you call me passionate, high influence team member,
uh-huh.
is to actively listen and
Mm-hmm.
value the insights of people like me who love to talk. Because sometimes you don't, I know I'm very forceful,
Mm-hmm.
but you have to listen to what I'm saying
Right.
because I know for sure that 9 out of 10 times I'm making sense.
Mm-hmm.
But people get turned off because of how forceful I am.
Mm-hmm.
So that's one of my weaknesses.
No,
You have to,
I would necessarily, it depends, right? I wouldn't necessarily call it a weakness because guess what? Do you get outcomes? Do you get results?
yes.
Yes. Yes. So go ahead, wrap it up. You wrap it up. Tell us what we
Yes, I
need
think that
to do so we can wrap up.
yes, administration needs to create opportunities for open dialogue
Mm-hmm.
where the individual like me feel like you're listening. I
Mm-hmm.
feel that you're hearing what I'm saying. I feel like you appreciate what I'm saying. I feel that you understand that I'm trying to work with you.
Mm-hmm.
You should feel like make me feel like okay, you just come on board, but I've been here. Sometimes administrators or leaders come in, but you're a new leader. Well, guess what? I've been in the boat longer than you have been. So
Mm-hmm.
even though you're coming in with the title of administration, I have more experience than you have.
Mm-hmm.
So listen to what I'm not dictating to you what you should be doing, but I'm sharing with you some of my
Experiences.
concerns
Mm-hmm.
and not only how you want me to make you look good, because at the end of the day, if I don't do what I'm supposed to do, no matter how good you are, you're not going to look good because every link is important on the chain. So it's very important to listen. I'd also encourage leaders to process and experiment or give teachers the opportunity to try new ideas. The ideas I'm bringing to you, you may not have thought about it,
Mm-hmm.
but because I say it, I bring it to you. You should think about it. Tell me, okay, you're gonna talk with me whether a week later or so. What plans do I really have? And give me a chance to use my initiative.
Mm-hmm.
Don't just come tell me do this, do that when I have experience and I know what has worked for me before. Um, by fostering that collaboration and respecting what I'm bringing to you, and when I leave your office, I feel confident
Mm-hmm.
that you are going to work with me and help me to become a better me. In you helping me to become a better me, then I will bring that to my classroom. And
Mm-hmm.
then you are going to be able to see what I brought to you which is also going to help you as a leader because you gave me that opportunity to use my initiative. Um, by fostering collaboration and respecting these principles, leaders can help individuals thrive while maintaining a productive balance between influence and authority. And the last thing I want to say is, I might have to read this, is ultimately this dynamic serves as a testing ground for developing patience, diplomacy, and collaboration. And these lessons not only enhance leadership skills, but also strengthen the ability to inspire and guide others effectively.
Ladies and gentlemen, you heard it directly from her mouth. From her mouth to your ears. You heard it directly from Miss P's mouth. There is nothing else for me to say because you have summed it up so beautifully and you're absolutely right. And if the people you're leading can articulate the way Miss Patterson just articulated for you, what is the problem, right?
What
We
is the
have to
problem?
listen. We have to listen. We have to work with our people. We have to be open to hearing them. Simply because we have a title does not mean we are the ultimate all this. Y'all, I share all the time that I'm a great, proponent of group thinking. Get people in a room, just talk, come up with solutions, right?
Oh,
And go through it. So, Miss
at the end
Patterson,
of the day, we
well
are in it
said.
together. At the end
Well
of the
said.
day, it's administration and the staff. Together, we are in
Well
it.
said. Well said. And of course, we know who benefits, those we serve. Miss Patterson, I'm going to say it one more time. It has been such a pleasure. Thank you for your time. It was great to see you. It was great to have this conversation with you.
Well,
And I
thanks.
know that people are going to get a lot out of this episode, whether you are in a formal position or just an informal position. You have the ability to influence. You have the ability to impact. You have the ability to be a leader. So go be a leader. Go be a leader, no matter what
Thanks for having me.
organization you're at.
Thanks for having me.
Oh, my pleasure. My pleasure. My pleasure. My pleasure. My pleasure. All
Okay.
right, Miss B. So thank you and have a great rest of your day. So, ladies and
You
gentlemen,
too.
we're gonna sign off. Have a great rest of your day.
Yes.
Like I said, go lead. Miss Patterson just
Okay.
said it. I don't need to repeat what she just said because those words were very poignant and to the point and is exactly what we as leaders needed to hear. And I'm taking mine from that and I'm gonna continue to grow as I lead. You go do the same. All right.
Okay.
Ciao.
Thank you. Bye.
Ciao. Thank you for tuning in to Leadership Plus with Dr. G.